The first thing we need to do is make sure that the workspace and the visual shaders are set up appropriately so that we are seeing the most accurate colors as we're painting. The default display mode for Blender is set to something called Filmic, which in this example here, as you can see, this is a pure white texture, but in Filmic mode it has kind of a dull gray look to it because it's still using the simulation of traditional camera settings. When we change this over to standard mode, we get an accurate representation of the colors in our scene. We're also going to be using emission shaders and the EV render engine. I'm also going to make sure that the film is set to transparent because when we render our images and our turntable sequences, we want a transparent background so that that can be edited into any number of videos for your demonstrations. This is a quick look at the basic anatomy of the shaders that we're going to be setting up. Again, we are using an emission shader, and in this example here, I also have set up a alpha texture so that we can have transparency support, which is something that almost every one of these pieces is going to need. We'll get into outlines as well with the solidify modifier and a special material made just for the outline, which actually uses the texture that we're going to be painting on, giving us the illusion of those darker colored lines that are very commonly used in especially the anime stylized look, which is what we're going for, as these source images are from Genshin Impact. All right, so I have this base workspace already set up for working here. So we're just going to go through this process very quickly together in getting this set up the same way. So I'm going to save this off, and I'm going to personally jump back to this later. We're going to create a new workspace, and we're going to stumble through doing this together. So even though I have notes, I'm probably going to mess a couple things up, and that's okay. We're going to work through it together. So first thing that I'm going to do is just simulate that the workspace here where I have my reference image on the left-hand side. So just splitting the panels using the little crosshairs in the corners of everything. I'm going to make this top left one an image viewer, and I'm going to go ahead and just open up my reference. And there's my reference. And for this, we're going to be making the katsu sandwich. So the next thing I need to do is to set my camera into the square resolution that I know I'm going to want to render in. And so while I have the camera selected, while I'm thinking about it, let's get some Screencast keys up here so you can see my keys. And then I'm just going to move this over into the camera with the num key. And now heading over to the render settings here, I'm going to just make this 1920 by 1920 for the resolution, and that seems fine. And now, once I have this sort of set where I want, I think this is pretty good right here. Yeah. Next thing I would like to do is to just set up the background image on the camera so that I can do image matching. And how we do that, going over into the camera settings, check background images, and I'm just going to select the reference image that I just put in to the file for my visual reference. And I keep both of these open in my layout workspace, and this is where I will refer to back frequently as I'm building my scene to make sure that I am maintaining the accurate size and proportions for the things that we're creating. Now for the cube, as you see, the cube is looking a little bit on the small side relative to our space, so I'm not going to go crazy with this right now, but I'm just going to maybe scale this guy up for a little bit here, and just filling the space. We're going to completely blow away this cube and make something else later, but that's good for reference for now. And at this point, it'd be good to save your file. I'm not going to bother so much, but we're going to next go over to the shading tab here. And this is where we're going to recreate our textures. Now I like to start the texture or the material names with MAT, and we'll just call this katsu sandwich. And that's our first material, and that's in slot 1. We move over that material output, and we can just delete that principled BSDF. And the particular, let's see here. Don't need to see my face on all my ridiculous files. So over here is the image view, and we will go ahead and create a new texture, and I'm going to just call this diff for diffuse, because this is going to be the base painted texture that we're going to use, and then I'll just call this katsu sandwich as well. I'm going to be painting on 2048. If you have a meaty computer and want super crazy good resolution images, go ahead and make this the what is it, times 2, 4096 if you really want to. But note that the higher resolution images you have and the more images that you're painting on simultaneously, the crunchier it's going to be on your computer, and if you don't have a very powerful machine, you might have some lagging issues, which is extremely detrimental to any type of painting. I found 2048 to be more than enough for what we're doing. These are just demonstrative props after all, and if you're using these for any actual project, for games or just about anything else using the stylized style, I think this is more than fine. All right, so I'm just gonna make this white. Don't necessarily need alpha, I'm not stressing about that. No, just create this new image. All right, great. I'm just gonna let that hang out over there for a minute. Now going back to my shader editor, I'm gonna right click to add. We're gonna just use the handy search. Oops, how did we do that before? And find image. Okay, interesting note. That is a different search capability than, I believe, so I've just actually downloaded Blender 4.4, and that had, if you take a moment to watch the demo on the new features, every one of the 4 updates has added dramatic stability and interface improvements, and apparently this is searching within your shader, as in the things that are in your current node. I don't have anything other than the material output. What I really wanted was the Shift A search add for the available nodes, which I wanted image texture. So that's cool. We're learning together. Great. Let's Shift A again, and let's grab an emission shader. I knew where that one is in the menu, so easy peasy. I'm going to plug my color into my color, my emission into my surface, and I'm just going to grab that diff image for our base shader. Now I'm not going to worry so much about, we'll actually compulsively hit Control S, which is a very, very good habit to be in. We're going to call this demo template, and then you know what, I can give you guys this as part of this course package, which even better. All right, I'm going to save that off as the Blender file, and that is pretty much all we're going to need to do to get started texture painting for our material. Right, so we're just going to use this material for everything. Now this is set on slot 1, and also I know I have not yet changed the view to standard from Filmic, and as you can see, the very bright white of the image over here is definitely not being accurately reflected in the viewport while I'm in material view mode. So this is where we want to be, material preview is where we want to be when we're shading. So let's fix that. We're going to head over to the render properties tab, the very top one here, and going down into color management, we're going to change this view transform. Oh, it's AGX. I have no idea what that means, but we're going over to standard. So this is what we need to be set. And as you can see, once I switch over to standard, it is a beautiful bright white color, which is going to accurately show all of the colors that we're working for. I'm going to go ahead and just quick check that transparent film so I don't forget about it later, even though I'm not going to need it for a while. And that's pretty much all I need to do here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and set up that solidify outline just for the base template, mostly just because it's a good thing to have, to show you right here so we don't have to fuss with it at the end. It's the exact same process for all outlines using what's called the inverse hull method. And thankfully with Blender's non-destructive modifier system, it's really great to be able to just drop this on and then turn it off while we're painting, and then we'll be able to turn it on later to see all of the awesomeness that we've created. So just going in here to the add modifier, and you can search, it's called Solidify. And then for the settings, the most important one is we need it to be flipped. We want the materials to be set to slot 1 and rim also to slot 1. I'm not sure if this actually makes a difference with what we're doing, but I habitually had set it to 1, so we're going to continue to do that. And then in the material setting here, we're going to go ahead and add a new material slot. I'm going to create a new texture. It took a second to crunch there. I'm going to call this matte outline. And here's a matte outline being shown here in slot 2. And once again, I could have probably just duplicated the katsu sandwich. And let's do let's see, select this, Control C. We're going to go outline, Control V. And that's great. Now what I actually will do here is between the emission and the material output, we'll just drop a, I believe it's called HSV. Yep, color, hue, saturation value. We're going to drop that into here. Oh, nope, invalid. Haha. I wasn't sure if that was actually the correct order. So let's pull that off of here. And we're going to add it to the color of the image before it goes into the emission. And now it's happy. Okay. So now we're just going to, I don't know, I'm going to pop off this for just a second because I just want to make this like a super obnoxious color so we can see it. So there we go with a bright pink. And we'll reconnect those lines later when we're finally actually ready to see our outlines. All right, well, this isn't really doing what I want, right? Because it's actually showing it on everything instead of making a nice outline. So there's still a little bit more work to do before we get this looking the way that we want. So the offset is at -1, which is what we want. The material is correct. What happens when I drop it? The thickness seems to be okay. So what's going on? All right, let's look at this material here. This is what the last step that I needed. And this is all in that PDF that will be included with these course notes so you can quickly reference this little checklist. What we need is backface culling turned on and set to camera. Aha! And now it is only going to be showing the inside because we have in Solidify, we have flipped the normals, right? So as far as the world is concerned, the camera is concerned, there is a whole new copy of our exact geometry mesh being flipped and expanded around our base mesh, and the material is only being shown from the front, not double-sided, and that's how we create the illusion of cartoon outlines in the shader. And I mean, this has been used a lot. I mean, this is anytime you see toon shading, unless it's done in a post-processing pass in games or in film, this is usually how outlines are done. Now, I mean, now grease pencil is now changing everything about how to do outlines in Blender in an incredible way. And there are other really great options in order to make line art on your geometry. But for this particular exercise and for these projects, we're going with the classic inverted hull method, just like that. All right, so now if I drop this color into the color, of course, it's going to be white. And I think I could maybe hit it with a value. There we go. So like a change in the value for white to dark. Honestly, I'm not going to worry about any of that. I'm just going to undo that because I don't want it to be more than the default. So we're just going to keep it the obnoxious pink for now because really all of the meat is set up. So we are ready to model and paint. All right, let's go ahead and see this in the material view, and ta-da! We have, and let me move this one over here too. There we go. All right, so now we have replicated the base template setup for Workspace for making all of our food. And if, like me, you want to follow along and do a bunch of these because it's excellent modeling and texturing practice, save this off as your template file, and then start here as your base for all of the other cool stuff that you're going to make. All right, that's it for now, and let's move on to the next step.